not have it slow us down too much. So they'll be here in about a Yes. You got one. Right, but I wanted to start with the oysters. There's a voting list number 33, and there's a voting list number 32. We're going to start with 33. We're going to start with HB 1228. This is Monday the 28th. Lost. 1228.
All right. House Bill 1228, Natural Resources, Oysters, Spat, Shells, and Substrate. This is the identical cross-file of Senate Bill 830, which passed both this committee and the Senate unanimously. The bill establishes various programs, goals, research requirements, planning requirements, and funding requirements related to oyster spat, oyster shells, and oyster substrate. There are no amendments. There are no differences from the Senate bill.
It's moved and seconded. Again, as said, the oyster bill, which was consensus bill. Senator Carrizo.
Just on the report, I know it passed out of, the Senate version passed out of this committee unanimously. On the floor, there were 2 senators that voted against it, and I was one of them, so just to make sure we had the record correct.
Thank you for noting that. Okay, the
There are no amendments.
Okay. So the bill as before you, any discussion? Would anybody like to be voted in the negative? 1. So it is 3, 5, 7 to 1, 3 absent. Okay. Ms. Goodman, 1255.
Okay.
This is House Bill 1255, Education, Physical Restraint and Seclusion, Limitations, Reporting, and Training. The bill prohibits specified public agencies and non-public schools with certain exceptions from using seclusion as a behavioral health intervention for a student. The bill prohibits, with exceptions, a public agency or a non-public school from using physical restraint on a student as a behavioral health intervention. Before using seclusion as a behavioral health intervention for a student in a non-public school, a healthcare practitioner must possess specified credentials, have received relevant training, and be clinically familiar with the student. If a student in a public school or placed in a non-public school by the local school system is physically restrained 10 or more times in the school year, the school must notify the local school system and the Maryland State Department of Education at the earliest opportunity. If a student enrolled in a public school that is not a public school is physically restrained 10 times or more in a school year, the public agency must notify MSD at the earliest opportunity. On your desk is also a set of amendments. And if you recall, the Senate amended this bill to redefine physical restraint to make it consistent with what is an existing regulation. It provided that the limitations on physical restraint and the prohibitions on seclusion don't apply to the Juvenile Services Education Program. After the committee wasn't satisfied with just having to report at the earliest opportunity and added language saying, but not longer than 4 business days after the student's 10th incident of physical restraint. And then added a provision that MSD had requested if a local school system or a public agency or local school system or a non-public school violate any of the provisions in this subtitle, they have to put together a systemic, evidence-based corrective action plan to the department if the public agency or non-public school fail to comply, or they report to the department that the student has been physically restrained or placed in seclusion 10 times or more in a school year. This is the House bill. The House added a provision that changed the definition of seclusion slightly. With an agreement with the House, they have agreed to adopt the Senate amendments, except for that definition of seclusion of the Houses, which we have kept in. So with the adoption of these amendments, the two, and them adopting amendments on the Senate bill, they will be consistent in the same posture.
The amendments to conform it, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, would anybody like to be noted in the negative on the favorable report? Seeing none, that is an 8-0-3 vote. So, Ms. Goodman, we are ready or not for 734?
We can vote it, but I believe that B&T has not signed off yet on the funding.
Their second?
No.
But
But
it's got
with the House amendments that added significant amount of appropriations, they needed a second, and we haven't gotten their approval yet.
So should we vote and hold it in abeyance or wait till we hear from them?
Right, because then we can put it in the same posture that the Senate bill is in.
So we should act.
Yes.
Okay, let's go into 734.
So if you recall, House Bill 734 is the same as Senate Bill 912 as amended. This committee decided to adopt the House committee's amendments as a whole. And what these did was that under the bill for a, what do they call it? Sorry. Guaranteed access grant, if the recipient becomes ineligible because of a change in family income, the amendments changed the recipient being on a sliding scale of a decreasing amount of award. The changes said that the recipient remains eligible for the full award if the student is eligible for a federal Pell Grant. It also provides that the guaranteed access grant eligibility must be based on the annual family income determination when used when a student pre-qualified under the Next Generation Scholars of Maryland. It struck, let's see here, it struck the language that would have increased the maximum award amount for the educational assistance grant provision. It alters the requirements of the communications campaign for near completers to focus on specified individuals for certain years. It adds an annual appropriation of $500,000 to the Maryland Higher Education Outreach and College Access Program. It increased the appropriation for the Rawlings program from $75 million to $112 million. It provides that student, I just went over that, sorry. It clarifies where an award under the Conroy Memorial Scholarship Program and the Cryer Memorial Scholarship Program may be used, and it requires an annual appropriation of at least $4 million beginning in fiscal year 2024. It alters the eligibility criteria for the veterans of the Afghanistan and Iraq conflict scholarship to allow stepchildren, and it requires an appropriation of at least $400,000 for the James Proctor Scholarship Program.
Okay, so this conforms it,
Correct.
and so it retains the language about the Pell Grant as a backstop?
Yes. So the Senate bill adopted the House's amendments. The motion here would be a favorable because the House bill was as the Senate, we amended it. So we just want the House bill as it is.
Right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Vice Chair, seconded Senator Riley. Discussion on the bill on the favorable, which conforms it to the amendments to the Senate bill. Seeing no discussion, would anybody like to be recorded in the negative? Seeing not, it'll go to 902, absent. Okay, there are some sandwiches, some veggies, some turkey, some roast beef, because like I said, we might be on the floor a while, and it might be a very late dinner. So if one at a time, we're going to allow a little flexibility today, because I want to get through as much of this as possible. So let's one at a time. If you do want to bring some food in, get it, and we'll continue working. Okay, that takes care of those three bills. We'll go back to list 32. We'll start at the top, HB 12. Ms. Morton.
House Bill 12, Worcester County Public Safety, Buildings Used for Agritourism. This bill is the cross-file of Senate Bill 32, which this committee passed. The bill exempts an agricultural building in Worcester County used for agritourism from obtaining a change of occupancy permit if, one, the building's use for agritourism does not require it to be occupied by more than 200 people at any one time, and two, the width of the egress for the building meets specified building code standards. I've included a reprint or a copy of the House bill in your voting packet that starts on page 2. The only difference between the House bill and the Senate cross-file is if you look on page 4, the Senate bill was amended to take the effective date to June 1st. The House bill still has October 1st.
Senator?
If we could move it favorably with the Senate amendment.
So the motion would be to amend to conform to the Senate bill.
Okay. The Senator from the Eastern Shore has suggested amending it and conforming to the Senate bill and with the favorable.
Yes.
Second discussion. Seeing none, anybody wish to be recorded in the negative? Seeing not, 902. That's done. HB 28.
House Bill 28, pharmacist nicotine replacement therapy medication. This bill grants the authority to a pharmacist to prescribe and dispense nicotine replacement therapy medications. So as amended in the House, it limits the scope of the regulations that the Board of Pharmacy has to adopt to include only nicotine therapy medications instead of the broader category of all aids for tobacco cessation. It defines nicotine replacement therapy medications and notes that the medicine does not have to be available over the counter. There are amendments from the Senate sponsor, Senator Washington, and they modify the definition of nicotine replacement therapy by removing the requirement that the medicine has to be in small doses. It sounds like this is a request from the House with intent to conform it together.
Move the amendment. Everyone agrees.
Any objection to the amendment? Seeing none, yes.
So how does could you just highlight what exactly the differences are between the House version and the Senate version then? Because it sounds like it's different than the Senate version that we sent over.
Right. So the Senate version was broader, right, in that the Board of Pharmacy was required to adopt regulations that were all tobacco cessation, so that could have been patches, medicines, lozenges, anything that, or over-the-counter prescription pills. I think there was a actual prescription that you mentioned at the hearing, that would have been included within the scope. So now that's pared down in the House, and it's only those replacement therapy medications.
So the regs that they have to develop are just pertain directly to what we have
Right,
allowed
exactly.
them to dispense.
Exactly, yep.
Okay.
Okay, on the amendment, Any objection to adopting the amendment? Seeing none, it's adopted. Favorable as amended is the motion. It's moved, it's been seconded. Senator? Okay, seeing no discussion and seeing no lights on, I will assume that as a 9-0 to 2 vote on HB 28. Sealant products, okay. Driveways, parking lots. Ms. Morton? What's the parking lot?
Okay. House Bill 133, Environment, Sealant Products, Prohibitions, the Safer Sealant Act of 2022. This is the cross-file of Senate Bill 372, which this committee passed. This bill establishes prohibitions beginning October 1st, 2023, relating to the sale and use of high PAH sealant products that are applied to driveways and parking areas. Airports, federal facilities, and military facilities are exempt from the bill's provisions. Existing and new enforcement and penalty provisions apply to the bill and any related regulations or orders. The House bill is almost identical to the Senate cross-file, except for one key difference. So if you want to look at page 7 of the bill, or of the voting packet, the House bill defines a high PAH sealant to mean anything with a concentration of PAH exceeding 0.1%. In the Senate, we use the Howard County standard of 1%, so a little bit more permissive in the Senate bill.
Reverse.
I think you got it backwards.
No,
The House is less permissive.
right. The Senate bill is more permissive.
Okay. Is there a motion to conform to the Senate bill?
Yes.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. So we will put this in the posture of how it passed. Senator Lamb.
But- So this would put it in a less permissive,
No.
more permissive, sorry.
Right.
It-
It would allow, it would amend to conform to the Senate version, which allows more products to be sold. The prohibition would apply to fewer products under the
Right, the
Senate
House version is more stringent.
in the current form, yes.
It totally prohibits just about everything. This matches it with the Howard County. Discussion. Did I say something wrong?
Howard County.
Oh, my, oh, my.
Remember, Mr. Chair, he may not agree with everything those councilmen do.
Right. Okay, the motion is to conform it to the Senate bill as it was passed. Any discussion? Anybody object? Okay, as amended, because you think it's not permissive enough. Okay. Then the vote is 9-1-2.
No, actually, I was okay with the amendment, but I'm voting against the bill.
Gotcha. Okay. Numbers are going down quickly. 7-2-2. The bill passes as amended and conformed to the Senate version.
I'm sorry, who else voted against it?
Carosa and Riley. It ended with an LY. My sincerest apologize, Senator.
Irish thing.
I love the good senator from St. Mary's County.
Right. Whoops. Okay, 163.
House Bill 163, Public Information Act,
And
required
again, there are
denials.
sandwiches out there. Sorry, I apologize.
Required denials, sociological information and distribution lists. So the Senate version that we amended in EHE removed references to this bill. So essentially, this bill would have required, would have prohibited any individual that held records of eminent domain list from not disclosing it to the public for those who requested it. So it tried to close off a loophole for publicly accessible lists for eminent domain. So we amended the version. Instead of it being an inspection authority, it was pared down to a notice requirement. So we removed references to the Public Information Act in general and required that this notice sent to a resident for eminent domain purposes through the Department of Transportation be sent to the General Assembly delegation where the property was located. So amended in the House, it retains the language of the Public Information Act. So references to sociological information and distribution lists are retained so that the information that is submitted can be publicly inspected. Requires a custodian who is holding this list of recipients of eminent domain to tell the individual who's inspecting it that the list is redacted and to inform the inspecting party about how many people had information that's redacted from the list. It gives individuals who would have been added to the list the ability to opt out, and it prohibits the individual who receives this opt-out request from including their names, their information on this inspectable list. So there's still the Public Information Act provision here. It's not only a notice requirement. Individual will still be able to request the list of recipients of eminent domain notice through the Public Information Act, so long as certain information is redacted.
Are you talking about the third reader version?
Yes.
Okay, the third reader version of the Senate, oh, you're talking about the House version? Okay,
Yep.
all right. So I'd like to move that we conform to the Senate version, please, which simply notifies legislators of projects in our own districts.
Is there a second? It's been seconded. Yeah, I think our approach was much
Way
simpler
simpler.
and easier. This gets complicated.
Yeah.
Senator?
So quick question. We spent a lot of time talking about this, the Senate version, especially sociological information. So did we change the title? Can we change it?
Title is changed, and the title would be, the version that we passed in the Senate just says Department of Transportation, Notice of Entry onto Private Property. It's really simple. It's just letting us know if they're messing in our districts.
So do we have to amend this title also?
So my motion is to amend the House bill to look exactly like the
Okay,
Senate
and
bill.
that will change the title.
Gets rid of sociological and all
Yeah.
the confusing stuff.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay.
Okay. To conform to the Senate version is before us. Further discussion? Anybody wish to be recorded in the negative? Okay, so that will be 3, 5, 7, 7, 1, 3. Okay, huh? I guess we don't need a financial literacy course. Okay, that takes care of 163. Let's go to 279.
House Bill 279, Veterans Affairs Communications Outreach and Advocacy Program, Veterans Advocacy and Education Act. So the Senate version, as amended in EHE, renamed the Outreach and Advocacy Program within the Department of Veterans Affairs to be the Communications Outreach and Advocacy Program within the same department. As amended in the House, everything substantively is the same, but we need to, well, I would advise that we adopt a technical amendment that amends the purpose and function paragraphs. So an
take
amendment
the
to
House
actually,
version?
to fix the issue. So it's a duplicate issue that the House is going to fix as well. So after they vote, it'll be in the same posture, but it is more of a editing issue that should have been addressed.
Okay, so it's
before.
neither conform, sorry.
This is the 279
Yeah.
amendment on your
That's
desk.
correct, yep,
That's under my name.
yes.
This is just technical.
Move the bill with a technical amendment.
Okay, discussion? Seeing none, anybody wish to be recorded in negative? Seeing no hands, 803. Okay. Now that takes care of 279. Let's go to 511. Are we ready for that or not? Yes.
Easy.
House Bill 511, University of Maryland Institute for Public Leadership Establishment. This bill establishes an Institute for Public Leadership at the University of Maryland College Park campus within the School of Public Policy. And for fiscal years 2023 through 2027, the governor must include $1.5 million for the institute in the annual budget. The House bill is the same as the Senate. They added one small amendment on page 2, which exempts this particular funding appropriation from specified education funding formulas.
Which are what?
The CADE formula and the Sellinger formula. It would mess it up, so, because this is a short-term fund for only 4 years.
Isn't Cade community colleges?
Right.
it
So the
wouldn't be
CADE formula and the
applicable.
Sellinger formula are based on a certain amount of money given to certain public four-year institutions, and this being one of those institutions, it would throw a wrench into that, so.
Got it. So move favorable with the House amendment.
No, we just move
We
favorable.
receive, just move
Yes,
favorable. Thank you,
yes.
yep. 511 favorable, please.
Is there a second?
I'm
511.
It's House Bill 511.
So
It's the center.
Sir, I just have a question about the bill. What is it doing? So it's a 4-year special, like a workshop, a 4-year workshop?
this was the Gazoni bill that passed the Senate and the committee unanimously
I
to
know,
set
which
up
is
a,
what- Yeah,
oh.
yeah. What does it set up?
So it says the purpose of the institute is to support students, build an active community of practitioners, and serve as a resource for public leaders. So it's housed within the School of Public Policy at Maryland College Park.
Okay, so, but it's just a 4-year project?
Well, the funding is 4 years, so unless they get funding after 2027, then it might be a startup cost.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's a favorable on the House bill as it is, no amendments. Discussion, seeing none. Anybody wish to be recorded in the negative? Seeing none, that becomes a 9-0-2 vote. 592.
592 is, this is deer management permit, hunting on state land leased by permit holder authorization. This is the cross-file of Senate Bill 497. This bill authorizes the Department of Natural Resources to allow a person hunting under a deer management permit on state land leased by a permittee for the cultivation of crops to use a shotgun or breech-loading center-fired rifle approved by DNR to hunt deer throughout the year, including all deer hunting seasons, in the locations and under the conditions set forth in the permit. Bill also restricts an existing authorization for a person who is hunting under a deer management permit on private property in Baltimore, Charles, Calvert, St. Mary's, and Harford County to use a DNR-approved shotgun in locations and under conditions set forth in the permit. Under the bill, that authorization only applies if DNR explicitly allows it. I've included, again, a copy of the bill in your voting packet. It starts on page 11. The Senate had passed this bill with no amendments. So the House amendments you can see are on page 12. Essentially, the Senate version of the bill just said that on private property, et cetera, a person may use these rifles under a deer management permit. It didn't give the department any discretion on that matter. The House amended that to say that the Department of Natural Resources may authorize a person that's hunting under a deer management permit either on private property or on state land leased by the department to use those weapons. And that was in response, that was something that the department had included in its letter of information on the bill as a recommendation.
So what are the implications?
So the implications are, under the version passed by the Senate, it would just broadly say that on state land leased by a permit holder, an individual who hunts deer under a deer management permit may use a shotgun, breech-loading, center-fired rifle, et cetera, it would not give the department any discretion to, on sort of a case-by-case basis, decide which land would or would not be appropriate for the use of those weapons, or even more broadly, for the use of the deer management permit.
So the House version,
Gives discretion to the department.
okay. But again, it can't go beyond the parameters already in the existing law.
Correct.
What's the pleasure? Senator Hester?
I'm just, excuse me, I'm just trying to understand this. This is on private land, correct?
So
State land.
the original bill dealt with state land. As amended, it also affects the existing law having to do with private land. So it says in all cases, the department has that discretion.
And so what would happen then when, in order to, for a private landowner to do something, they would have to contact DNR?
So it's a matter of what type of rifle they can use. And all of this is getting a little bit into the history of this law to begin with. Deer management permits were initially sort of handled by the department through regulation. Years ago, a law was passed specifically because I think a couple of members were concerned, wanted to specifically say that you could use these specific weapons, the breech loading, the shotgun breech loading center fired rifle, to use under those deer management permits. It wasn't really about whether or not they could issue the deer management permits, because they were already doing that. It was about which weapons they could use. The way this bill came in, again, I think the intent was to deal with this question of whether or not people who were leasing land could even hunt under deer management permits to begin with, because that was, the law had sort of codified some sections of deer management permits and not others. So that's what the bill was intended to do. The department had concerns about sort of going backwards and saying that, they didn't have any discretion on what types of weapons could be used to hunt deer under those deer management permits.
Question, was this the same bill that, okay, it wasn't the bill, it was not amended on the Senate floor?
No.
Okay.
It was not the Ellis amended bill about walking the property.
Right.
Or
What-
whatever was replaced for that.
Was this the bill where we had the University of Maryland Extension come in and talk about, like, that needing to, or somebody mentioned that, because I've got like the Clarksville Ag Station in my backyard, and they wanted to be able to manage the deer, and the deer are horrible.
I believe so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing that makes me most uncomfortable, like, I understand the DNR's position, but if we're talking, if somehow this goes beyond the state land to the private land, I don't know if that was the intent of the amendment. Makes me a little nervous.
So it does add the department to authorize on private property in those 5 counties, correct?
Yeah, for those weapons, yes.
Right, okay. Senator Carozza?
I was trying, since the cross-file was Senator Gallion, who's not here, I've just tried to check in with him, and he said he thinks the House bill as amended is okay, just since he was the cross-file, and I thought we should just have him weigh in.
That's fine. So, Senator, are you suggesting we adopt the favorable on the House bill as it came to us? Senator Carozza? Senator Carozza?
I'd like to defer to the Senate sponsor.
It sounds like he was okay with it,
He was okay, he says, I think the House bill as amended is okay.
which means move favorable. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we pass the House bill as it is favorably. Any discussion? Seeing none, that'll be recorded as a 9-0-2 vote. Next.
Okay. House Bill 716, Patuxent River Commission membership. This is the cross-file of Senate Bill 367. So this bill alters the membership of the Patuxent River Commission. Specifically, the bill adds the Patuxent River Keeper as a permanent full voting member of the commission beginning June 1st, 2022, and makes the president of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, or designee, an ex officio member of the commission. It also reduces from 2 to 1 the number of appointed members representing academic interests. That's to account for the fact that one of those academic members is currently the UMC's Senate president. So there is one difference between this version and the Senate version. If you take a look at page 16 of your voting packet, the Senate bill actually had also added one individual representing an organization or unit of local government engaged in watershed management and restoration to the commission. The House bill does not include that version.
I believe we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So move to conform to the Senate version.
It's moved and seconded, we conform it to the Senate version. Any objection? Seeing none, that'll be a 9-0-2 vote on 716. Okay, that takes care of 32. We're going to go back to remaining bills on 33. Our plan, I didn't fully, depending how long this takes, the remaining five or six bills, then we're going to finish with the walkthrough of the second of the two bills that we stopped on or we paused on Friday, not to vote, but to get the walkthrough, which I had promised everybody. So we're back on 33. We might as well start at the top. Ms. Morton.
Okay, House Bill 75. So most of these bills now on this list, we've dealt with all the cross files, so these are bills that we heard last week. House Bill 75, Maryland
Which were not cross-filed, right?
Correct.
Just to remember, we only had hearings on bills that were not cross-filed. And I'm still getting calls from people who have a cross-file and still want a hearing, and I'm saying thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah, with the exception of the
That's
ones
not
we
true.
already,
These,
the ones we already did, with
They-
the exception of the ones we already did.
wait,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, House Bill 75, Maryland Agricultural Commission Hemp Industry Member. This bill adds a member representing the hemp industry to the Maryland Agricultural Commission. The member is appointed by the governor from a list of 2 nominees representing the hemp industry.
Who gives the nominees? Ms. Morton? I haven't pulled up the bill yet. The 2 nominees go to the governor from whom?
That is a good question.
We're checking.
Yep, I'm looking too.
It's not specified, so,
How do they magically? One from a list of 2, at least 2 nominees representing the hemp industry.
right. I mean, it's the same language for all of the other, but I don't, it's not, it doesn't specify in the fiscal note who
That's so
comes up with that.
interesting. That took a sec.
Okay,
I mean, this whole bill is so interesting. One from a list of at least 2 nominees representing the veterinary profession. How does that magically, or the vegetable industry? the horticulture industry. I mean, I guess some of these have interest groups and associations. Maybe there's a hemp association, Hemp Growers of Maryland?
I believe there is.
Okay.
It's really taken off. And it has.
They're smoking.
Yeah, right. And I think there's a vegetable caucus as well. The vegetables nominate people as well. Okay, on the Fraser-Hidalgo bill, is there a motion?
Move favorable.
Yeah, it is a growing industry. We can make light of. No. I literally meant that. It is expanding. I don't know how else to word this without getting in trouble. It really is. More people are growing it and using it for products, not necessarily ones that are put in a pipe. So,
But mostly they want their independence. They just say, leave me alone. Oh, okay.
it is a Monday night. It is 10 of 6. Okay. It's moved. It's been seconded. Discussion on moving 75.
Everyone favorable.
Yeah. Anybody object? Do I have these bills? Seeing no hands, that will go to the floor as 803. That's HB 75. We'll go to 286.
House Bill 286, Emergency Medical Services, Paramedics, Immunization, and Administration, effective date. This bill retains authority of emergency medical services paramedics to administer either influenza or COVID-19 vaccinations until January 1st, 2025. The original authority would have expired in 2023.
This was in the executive order. This extends what the governor did to allow them to vaccinate. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on 286.
I have a question.
Senator Land.
This is just directly a extension, right? of
Right.
The sunset? There's
Right.
no other changes to the provisions?
No other changes.
Okay.
On the bill, anybody like to be recorded in the negative? The good senator. So that vote will go down as 812 and sent to the floor. That's 286. Next.
Okay. House Bill 397, Maryland National Commission Planning Park, the abbreviation, it has eluded me. Montgomery County Council and District Council voting thresholds. So the bill increases several voting thresholds that are required for the Montgomery County Council to make changes. Here is the name, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. So it increases from 6 to 8 the number of affirmative votes that are required for the Montgomery County Council to 1, override the Montgomery County Executive's disapproval of Planning Commission Chair or Planning Commission Vice Chair, to 2, authorize a salary of a Montgomery County Commissioner without the County Executive's approval, to 3, reapprove of budget items over the County Executive's disapproval, 4, to amend a capital improvements program, 5, to approve of a zoning classification after the County Council approves of the local zoning master plan, 6, to enact a regulation for the zoning of subdivisions. And it also increases from 7 to 9 the affirmative votes that are required to appoint a commissioner to serve on the commission over the disapproval of the county executive. The bill applies prospectively and doesn't apply to actions that take effect prior to December 5th, 2022. We do have a local letter on this.
Move favorable, and colleagues, as I said, I think during the hearing, Montgomery County voters unfortunately voted to increase our county council from 9 members to 11, and so this is a way for our bi-county agency to have their vote totals and requisite votes needed reflect the increased size of the council.
Does it need a letter from Prince George's or not? It's a bi-county, but it's only affecting Montgomery,
The
I
Montgomery
believe.
County part of it.
So we don't need a Prince George's letter?
So, if I recall correct, so
They
it's
already passed the
sponsored
House
by,
unanimously.
it's sponsored by both delegations. So yes, but I wrote down that we did receive both, but I may have to go back and double check. So,
Earlier, we had a bill where we were dealing with the school system, and we had to get a letter from all the three participating unit, even though it was specifically for one. Remember the bill, we had to bring all the jurisdiction in line, and it was three that was up for inclusion. And when we did that, we got letters from all three. That was. I don't remember this.
Must be a letter from each of them because it passed the House unanimously in committee and on the floor. Presumably, they wouldn't have, oh, do they move legislation without a local letter in the House?
We need a
No?
Senate letter.
Fair, duh, sorry.
I said we move favorable pending a letter if necessary.
Pending receipt of the letter, or that we in fact need a letter from Prince George.
Right, okay. Right.
Anybody object to this by-county bill? Seeing not, that's 468, 803. 397 passes with an asterisk.
Yes.
882.
House Bill 882, Natural Resources, Pocomoke River Wildland, Alteration of Boundaries. This is a departmental bill from the Department of Natural Resources. The bill alters the boundaries of the Pocomoke River Wildland by exempting a specified tract of land serving as a trail course and adding a specified tract of land. The bill indicates that the alterations increase the net size of the wildlands by approximately 80 acres to a total of 3,109 acres.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Senator Patterson, your light's on from before, is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure you didn't want to speak. Okay, seeing no lights on, we'll record the vote as 35902, favorable on 882. Next.
All right. House Bill 1110, Environment Lead Poisoning Prevention, Elevated Blood Lead Level. The bill alters the application and meeting of elevated blood level and reference level as those definitions apply to specified provisions of law that initiate case management, notification, and lead risk reduction requirements under the state's lead poisoning prevention laws. The bill also requires the Maryland Department of the Environment, in consultation with the Maryland Department of Health and the local health departments and other relevant stakeholders, to study and evaluate the most effective means of incorporating the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention blood lead reference values into the state's lead poisoning prevention programs as specified. The department must report its findings and recommendations to the General Assembly by December 31st, 2022. Big picture, essentially what this is doing is it's ratcheting down the level of lead that could be noted in a child's blood that would require the department and local health departments to do follow-up evaluations.
People understand it? It's, okay. Is there a motion? Okay, I'll entertain a second. Senator Riley. Discussion. Seeing none and no lights, I will assume that it means a favorable. That will be a 9-0-2 vote. Okay. We've dispatched those bills. You'll probably be getting another list later tonight for tomorrow. And we're going to get into, we have enough time to start on 12:02, 12:05, whatever that number is, 12:02. But folks, in the last 10 days, we're going to try our best to get you the voting list for the next day, but I got to tell you, it takes time for the committee council to prepare them and amendments, so they could be coming a little faster and more furious. So we will try the best we can, and you will get a list for tomorrow before you leave the floor of the Senate, I think. The schedule for this week is obviously tomorrow morning. There may be an afternoon session. We have hearings, and then we have voting. There will be a list for tomorrow. Wednesday, there will be 2 sessions, a 10 and either 4 or 5. So I don't know if there's going to be time for voting on Wednesday. Thursday AM, there will be a long session. And then we have bill hearings, and then we have our social for the committee. So I'm not sure we're going to have time on Thursday. So then we get to Friday. Friday is 11 o'clock session, and it's unclear how long that'll be. Afterwards, we have non-cross-filed alcohol bills. Is that right? And there are a number of them. I don't know if that's an hour, hour and a half worth. It's just sponsor only. Depending on how long the morning session is, I might want to start taking up the cyber bills with amendments for voting, not just briefing, but voting. So that's tentatively for Friday. Things can change. We may have to move some other bills as well. And just so people also understand, and so this total transparency, there are some bills that you'll see on the floor this week because of presentment. Just so folks know, that means they have to get to the governor by a certain date if we want an opportunity to override before we end the session, because it is the 4th year of a 4-year session. So if they don't get overridden now, we start over. So there are some bills that are going to be on the fast track, just so we can be frank about that. Questions on anything I've shared with you? If not, let's go to 12:02. Do we have extra copies? I don't know if people kept them from last week.
I can reprint them out. I didn't make new copies, but I can.
Well, I think we'll need them.
Okay, I can do that.
Let's see, can we raise our hands so you don't overprint?
Okay.
Kill more trees.
How many would like a reprint? A reprint? Maybe I can find mine.
12:02.
Do you think, is mine on my desk? Do you think I kept? Okay.
Okay, thank you, April.
So, I'm sorry, how many reprints do we need? Just me?
Wow.
Okay.
Yay, us. Yay, committee.
Well, I think you might want to put me in seclusion,
But without the
if you're
light
allowed,
cameras.
if you're allowed.
With cameras.
Ian's looking right now. I'm not sure where it is. Give us 30 seconds.
Okay, just going to the printer now.
Two. Haha. I'm a pack rat. Okay. Well, let's begin then. I think I was the only one recalcitrant. Okay, 12:02.
All right, so HB 1202, Local Government Cyber Coordination and Operations, also called the Local Cybersecurity Support Act of 2022. So in general, prior to the amendments, again, this is identical to the posture of the Senate version that we currently have. So the bill codifies the Cyber Preparedness Unit within the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, which is in effect as of today. And the unit is required to coordinate with the state CISO in the Department of Information Technology, and is responsible for local support and real-time emergency deployment and conducting regional exercises locally. Establishes the Cybersecurity Fusion Center, also within the Department of Emergency Management. This coordinates info sharing across state and local government, and tries to be a hub in the moment of crises, and to coordinate between private entities, federal entities, and state entities. So it also mirrors language in House Bill 1346 that we reviewed on Friday for reporting cyber attacks at the local level. It codifies, similar to HB 1346, the Office of Security Management and the state CISO. Also requires coordination between Department of Emergency Management and the Office of Security Management in the same way as 1346. Establishes a fund for local cybersecurity, requires the certification of minimum standards for legislative and judicial branch agencies. It conforms language on assessments and response plans when there is an audit on cybersecurity, or when there is a state audit in general. There is a requirement that specific cybersecurity-related information is redacted. It requires a funding on the budget, or requires a review on funding and budgetary items by December 1st, and requires the state CISO to conduct a study on cybersecurity monitoring by December 1st of next year. So as amended, the amendments aren't as heavy or in-depth as HB 1346, so we may be able to go through these quickly. So we can start with the first page, or the first few pages. But essentially, what the amendments do is they remove the Fusion Center, they remove the local fund, and it removes the requirement for the legislative and judicial branches to certify minimum standards with the Department of Information Technology.
Alexis, give us the page numbers as you're
Okay.
scooting
So
through
I
it.
haven't opened it just yet, but we'll start at page 7. So 1 through 7 is renumbering language similar to House Bill 1346, so not as substantive. On the bottom of page 7, we see the removal of the local cybersecurity support fund. And on the top of page 8, the removal of the Fusion Center, which are two of the big pieces that the amendments perform. So on page 8, the cyber preparedness unit within MDM is codified. So this is real-time support, emergency managers being deployed at the local level in the event of an attack or an emergency. There's support that has to be given to local governments through the Department of Emergency Management as they develop cyber assessments and vulnerability assessments. And Office of State Management is the office that will approve of these assessments that the locals will be given or required to take. On the bottom of page 8, we see assist local governments in. This is why this bill is the local cybersecurity bill. It's heavily tailored towards local governments, assisting them, preparing them, and coming to their aid in the midst of cyber attacks. So the Department of Emergency Management, specifically the cyber unit, is tasked with assisting the locals in these cyber preparedness and response plans.
Do you want to wait, or can we interrupt as you're in a
I think
section?
interruption is fine.
Okay. I see that Senator Hester has her, do you want to go now? Sure. Okay, and I have a quick question on page 8 as well. Go ahead.
So I just think it's important for the committee to know that the thinking behind removing the fund from this bill is the communities of jurisdiction. So that's been added to the B&T bill, the Modernized Maryland bill, which is moving through appropriations and B&T. So the fund is still part of the package, just not in this bill. So I think that's important to note. The other thing about the Fusion Center is that we had inappropriately kind of named and singled that out. We already have a Maryland Fusion Center, and what we're doing is codifying the ISAC, the Information Sharing and Analysis Center within MDM, and that is not yet in this bill, but in the amendments that I have, we'll be putting it back in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That information is helpful if we understand it. Bottom of page 8, Alexis, line 25, assist local governments in, so the development of cybersecurity preparedness and response plan, and going on from there. Can we talk about the definition of assist? So I'm fine, I got this. I'm a local government, I'm Cecil County, Dorchester County, Montgomery County. I'm good, I don't need your help. does the state come in and say, yeah, but we're going to tell you what to do? We're going to provide the support whether or not you want it or need it? I'm just wondering about that verb, assist.
So the piece is that the role of Department of Emergency Management and Do It is, I think the language was intentional because they didn't want it to be in an oversight capacity. So assist in terms of support is another good word of it. There aren't a lot of directives for the locals that the Department of Emergency Management will require them to do.
Maybe Senator Hester also has another way of,
My assumption, Madam Chair, would be that it would be similar to how they currently assist in the development of emergency management plans already. So the Department of Emergency Management already helps local governments in developing their emergency response plans. Not all those response plans include cybersecurity, and so that would be how I would interpret this portion of the bill.
sometimes the, we're the state government, we're here to help you, isn't always so well received, right? Sometimes, like, we've got this, and we like our way. I don't know if DGS or anyone has thoughts on that, but is there precedent in the code where we use that language? Let me start there. And it's working just fine, and maybe I'm overthinking it? Or we can put a pause, since we're not voting on this anyway, and maybe we can just circle back some other time. And maybe if
can't think
MACO
of
is
it.
watching, or MML, or anyone, Maryland Association of Counties, Maryland Municipal League.
Well, there are, I'm trying to think of, there are several counties that are carved out from certain provisions that are directed from the state to those counties.
I'm going to interrupt from my own question, your answer to my question. This is a really big bill. We have 2 bills. So maybe we can just put a pin in that for another conversation, and maybe we can all reflect on it, check in with folks or whatever. But I'm curious about what that means. If you want to help me in a way I don't want, or you're going to direct me to do it this way, but I'm doing it this way, or I just want to understand that better. But I think we ought to move on, so. Yes, please, Senator Patterson.
I would support the idea of coming back to this, because I have some open concerns about that, too.
Yes.
If we don't spell it out here, then it may not go the way you want it.
We're thinking alike here.
All
All
right,
right.
okay.
So if the Maryland Association of Counties or Maryland Municipal League want to think about that as well and get back to Senator Patterson and me and Ms. Foxworth, that would be great. Please go ahead, page 9, and keep going.
So subsection C on page 9 establishes a mechanism for local governments to report the county attacks or cybersecurity attacks at the county level. And this is in the same way as House Bill 1346. So the locals have to report to the emergency manager and the Security Operations Center within DO-IT, the Maryland Joint Operations Center as well. And then those incidents are reported to the state chief, the CISO.
Now
If they meet criteria, well, the Office of Security Management determines the criteria for it to be reported to the state CISO, but they will always be reported to the emergency manager and the Security Operations Center within DO-IT, and to the Joint Operations Center.
So I'm more familiar with MJOC than I am with the the Security Operations Center. Is the Security Operations Center 24/7, 365?
I'm not sure of that, and I don't think DO-IT is here.
Because the MJOC is. Senator Hester, do you know, or is that something we want to check on?
I'm happy to check on with you. I believe at this point in time, it is 24/7. It currently only addresses state-level agencies, and so having this expand to include the locals is really important.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And I will say that I think that the cyber, so kind of on the intent point, the cyber preparedness unit, if I'm not mistaken, is, the intent behind that is to create that 24/7 real-time support. But that is a good question to look into on that issue. And so that, if it is a 24/7 kind of helpline, that would be within Do It, whereas the cyber preparedness 24/7 helpline is already within MDM. So down on subsection D on page 9, which is removed, this removed the Fusion Center, which would have been that information sharing piece that was originally established. And all of the language on page 10 actually is the removal of either the Fusion Center or the local cybersecurity fund, which has been, as Senator Hester mentioned, established in House Bill 1205, which is before B&T. Another reason why the Fusion Center was removed was because with the Cyber Preparedness Unit and the State Coordination and Operations Office within Do It, a lot of stakeholders felt like it was duplicative. There was a coordination across state and local governments that seems to already be kind of achieved through the Cyber Prep Unit and the Coordinations and Operations Office within Do It. Page 11 is just technical language, or the import is technical, is removing the local fund again. Page 12, the top part of page 12 is also language that removes the local cyber support fund from this bill. And subtitle 2A, which is Office of Security Management, is codifying that office, codifying the roles of the state CISO within the Department of Information Technology, and this is also duplicative to House Bill 1346. It mirrors that language. It mirrors the qualifications of the CISO. It establishes the new roles of local cybersecurity director and state cybersecurity director in the same way that House Bill 1346 does. So that's on page 13. Qualifications at the top, roles at the bottom. Page 14, we see the additional role of state cybersecurity, as I just mentioned. The same roles and responsibilities on page 14 as they are in House Bill 1346. Same is the case for 15. This is mirroring language to House Bill 1346, which applies to Office of Security Management and the roles that they have, some of which are direct from the executive order, and there are some that are additional. Page 16.
Nope, sorry, I'm on 14.
Okay.
Lines 15 through 19 on the office. This goes back again to local autonomy. The coordination of resources and efforts to implement cybersecurity best practices and improve overall cybersecurity preparedness and response for units of local government, local school boards, local school systems, and local health departments. So again, that's going to be the state mandating? No.
It's not a mandate. So
It says the office is responsible for.
So coordinating, so implementing the best practices, this goes back to the House Bill 1346, which
Which we're going to get to after this.
well, that's the one we did Friday.
Yep.
So,
Oh, we're not going back to that one
I mean,
again?
we can. I
Okay,
don't
all right.
know if we'll have time, but
No, go
sure.
ahead. Okay.
So when we talk about centralizing information technology policy, so the biggest mandate that the local governments have to abide by is the information technology policy. But how they reach that policy, the assessments that they conduct, the plans that they implement, that has to be done in coordination with Department of Information Technology, and in some instances with MDM, but I think this language was drafted to be softer and not construed as a mandate because the locals specifically said they didn't want it, but they would be open to support and funding. So by coordinating and implementing, so implementation of the best practices
14.
likely alludes to best practices of Do It in their kind of policy establishment.
Okay. So again, the language, efforts to implement cybersecurity best practice. Just again, sounds like they're going to insist, here's the way it shall be done. Anyway, we can move on. I'm just interested in that language. Looking here, yeah, 15 through 19. Yeah, and again, when you go down 23 through 27, it just says the office isn't responsible for installing and maintaining it, but it doesn't indicate that they're not going to be mandating kind of what you're going to do. I'm going to tell you what to do, and then you go do it. You can install and maintain, but I'm going to drive the train here, is what I'm reading between the lines. Senator Hester, you have something to coach us on this?
MACO and MML to some extent, but mostly MACO was involved in the work groups and the joint committee hearings throughout the interim. And in addition to additional funding, one of the overwhelming, asks of the state was to share information and best practices. So we had several focus groups and a survey, and if you want all that detail, I can share it with you. But basically, there is a group of IT, affiliates in all the counties, and they would love to have, somebody from, do it, come talk to them once a month, twice a month, or once every other month, and share best practices and stuff like that. So I'm happy to check these specific lines in the language with MACO, but I think the intent is something that they're aligned with.
Thank you, Senator Hester.
Yes, I think we were at page 16, which again, similar to House Bill 1346, the underlying language shows the coordination between Department of Emergency Management and Office of Security Management within DO-IT. On page 17, there is the,
Ms. Foxworth, I think and maybe you've already said this, at the bottom of 15, it replaced certify with support. So I think that's the intent, that reflects the intent of much of this bill, I believe.
right.
Okay. Thank you. Please.
So the reporting requirement that the Office of Security Management has to perform is similar to House Bill 1346. The report on the data on page 17, lines 1 through 27, will be sent to Budget and Tax, EHE, Appropriations, HGO, and the Joint Committee on Cyber. Bottom of page 17 is all renumbering technical language. And actually, that goes to page 20. On page 20, on line 6, this removes the separation of powers issue based on feedback from the judiciary, essentially stating that this language would have required legislature and the judiciary that used the system that, the LADA system that the state runs on. If they utilize that, then they would have to certify to do it that they met those standards. And there was a issue with that legally, and so this pares that down so that only local governments will have to make this certification instead of the state level branches. Language on page 12 down to page 32 is also similar to House Bill 1346, and it requires counties, schools, and health departments at the local level to develop these cyber plans, to complete the assessments, and to submit a report to the Department of Information Technology. And on page 21, this is technical language that removes the local fund.
Hold 1 second. I think the Vice Chair has a question about bottom of 20, top of 21.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have had a bill last week from Delegate Rosenberg on, I know Senator Washington is going to remember it because she had a lot of thoughtful questions about it, about election equipment that was purchased from a foreign vendor or used any foreign parts. I wonder, I'm looking at this with vendors. So it looks like the CISO or the department kind of gets to pick and authorize the list of vendors. And cybersecurity seems so important. Not to say there aren't bad and devious, mischievous human beings who live here or are citizens of America, but I just wonder whether there was any conversation, and again, maybe Senator Hester can coach us on that if there was, that ever came up. I'm not sure right now I'd be super psyched about having a Russian company provide us, for instance, with cybersecurity and, services or equipment. I wonder if that was ever discussed by the work group.
I can just say that this bill isn't, so acquiring vendors is like a procurement piece. So this bill doesn't touch necessarily on that. And what the other bill does, it actually retains local authority to procure their own resources. But what House Bill 1346 does is it says that if there's a third-party vendor that accesses a system, then they have to submit their report to the Office of Security Management to make sure that they're kind of meeting those requirements. So that provision of HB 1346, though, as I recall, is just for states. So that can be a consideration that the locals, that the requirement that the private vendors and third-party contractors have to certify at the local level that there aren't, there isn't any interference, and there aren't any cyber risks.
Whether it's here or elsewhere in the bill?
And I guess another way to kind of address that concern too is that there is a mandate on on the same page on page 20, that all of the state-run units have to certify that they meet those minimum standards through Do It. So that addresses two things. One, coordination with executive branch policy, coordination with Do It policy that is funneled down to the local level. And two, not imposing heavy mandates, but that could address the concern because whoever accesses that system at the local level would have to make sure that it meets like baseline competencies and security requirements. So.
For clarification purposes, we're talking at the bottom of page 20, top of 21, about the assessments that so I believe it says that the locals are certifying that they're in compliance with minimum standards, and they have to choose either the department or a vendor authorized by the department to do that. To do the assessment, correct. And so then it would be, are there, if we're concerned about Russia, are there Russian vendors that Do It has authorized? And I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on page 20 and everywhere we talk about this local units of government or any local agencies to certify. So what does that entail, certification? And are there requirements that have to go in to that certification? And does it have to come from a certified information systems professional, an auditor, or anything like that? Or is there any prescriptors of what certification means?
Senator,
Trying to find the page.
where are you seeing the word certification? On line 18,
So
it says
page 20.
I'm sorry.
We're on
Page 20, line 9. Under the subsection B of this section, shall certify to the department.
So the mechanism for how they certify it, it doesn't specify whether that's through a report, whether that is through an audit. I don't think it would be through an audit.
someone from Do It here?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in the professional world of, like I said, whether it's certified public accountant or certified information system auditor, that word certification has a lot of legal meaning, okay? So a management official in any company or government agency that have to be report on a certified statement, they can't do it themselves. It has to come from an independent person. So I'm just, of course, we can say what and who that certifier is because we draft the law. I'm just curious, do we even address that issue? Or will it be open to any kind of interpretation from whoever?
So I'm not sure how they currently, I'm not sure how Do It would interpret it, but it is the department that would. So, because Do It has insight into who's using their state system now, and it's those who are on the state system now, but it's not clear on whether that is on an annual basis, if it's semi-annual. That language isn't clear on what the certification procedures are. and
Yeah,
how they
I
do
think
it.
as I read 6 to 11, every year, they have to submit to the department that the systems they're using meet the minimum security standards, and they will share what those, how their system runs, what the standards are, what the security protections are.
So where's that, Mr. Chairman? You said
Well,
6?
again, I don't want to, I'm not an attorney. I'm reading 6 through 11, what you cited, Senator.
Oh, okay.
Each year, every local agency has to submit to the department, and the department certifies either they're in compliance with the state standards or they're not. And so either they have to show enough proof of what systems they're using, what protections they have, and either it's going to meet the standards set by the department or it's not, or they'll tell them to go back and redo it. That's normally how these things work.
Yeah, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but this section here, the department doesn't certify. The
Yeah.
local agency certify and send it to the department. So on page 20, line 9, it says, of this section shall certify to the department. So it's saying that each local government and any local agency shall certify to the department. And so,
Yeah, I guess I read that if it doesn't meet the threshold by the department, they ain't going to accept it.
so it might create a kind of like a, so we have all these local 24 jurisdictions and so it's possible that each one could have a different interpretation. They send it up to the department says, oh, I don't like it, I don't like this. So is there a standard?
Yeah, there's, the department sets minimum security standards. That will be for everybody. And I think the hope is they exceed that. But they have to meet these minimum standards in their cybersecurity protection.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
how I read it. Senator?
I think that your interpretation, Chair, is spot on. Just in terms of context, following the Department of Health, incident, they're currently, and they cut everybody off of all the Department of Health services. They're in the process of bringing all the local health departments back on. And as part of that process to get back onto Network Maryland, they are having to check all this stuff and recertify that they are in compliance. So it's something that the health departments are going through right now.
Okay, thank you for that, Senator. So you're saying the DeWitt Department of Information Technology will lay out the standards that each local jurisdiction have to meet. So the local will then say, hey, we've met all these standards through the checklist, therefore we certify that we are in compliance with your standards. Okay, that's.
And again, the department can say, thank you, but no thank you, if they feel you're misinterpreting it or you haven't met that as a minimum.
Okay,
I mean, just because you say we're doing it, the department's going to have the final word on the minimum security standards.
okay, thank you.
And again, that's my lay reading of this. And we've got about few minutes, 20 minutes.
So on page 21, as mentioned, the local cybersecurity support fund is removed. The stricken language on page 16 to 24 were procurement alterations, which have been created within House Bill 1346, not created, but kind of included within that bill. On page 22, any state or local audit that has cybersecurity included has to ensure that cybersecurity information is redacted. And the uncodified language on lines 5 through 27 require two things. Section 3 requires a review on the budget that is to be conducted by the CISO and the Department of Emergency Management. This includes recommendations on changes to the budget, guidance on how to use state funding, and that is to be made before December 1 of this year. Excuse me. And so that's to be submitted to the governor and to the General Assembly, but it's not specific on which committee, but we should be able to access it. It will be public. And Section 4 requires a study on December 1, due by December 1st, 2023, which is on feasibility of kind of altering cybersecurity to include cybersecurity monitoring within DO-IT. Essentially like establishing an office that focuses on cybersecurity monitoring within DO-IT.
That completes going through this bill. Thank you, Madam Counsel. I know Senator from Howard Carroll has some amendments on both bills. I've already gotten something from USM. They've got amendments. Everyone is going to try to get another cut at the apple because they know this is getting closer to the finish line. If you want to proffer amendments or people have suggested amendments to you to proffer, I don't know if we're going to get to this before Friday, but please forward them to committee council so we can put them in the package. So we'll just knock through them as we do, and we'll take one bill, then the other, and we'll talk about them, debate them, vote them up or vote them down. That's how we'll proceed. Then we'll send it back to the other chamber, and they will either concur or go to conference. So that's how we're going to proceed. Questions? Senator.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going back a little bit to page 22, that kind of gave an answer to the kind of question that I asked that everyone was alluding to. The first line, it talks about an audit report of a state or local government and the cybersecurity findings being redacted. So when you talk about certification, I'm not sure if each state and local agency have to have an annual audit. If that's the case, then, you know, this is alluding to that audit report, however often it happens by whichever audit agency, every 4 years. And I know that auditors have to report on issues like, you know, computer security and stuff like that. So I guess said every 4 years, that means that certification will be in there. And so the auditors are the ones who will supply another type of certification, the standard certification. So, I mean, I think I would read this and think about it further and put it all together, see if I can talk to you about what needs to be put in to make it clear when you say certification, because this also alludes to that audit, which is usually by an independent person. So
This is different. This is the legislative auditor who, just like they audit other agencies, this is a different section. It's 2-1224. It's a legislative auditor who has to report their normal audit. And as I read this, and the council can help me here, they just have to be clear, because it has to go to the public, that they redact security information before it goes to the public. So this is the DLS or the Office of Auditing for the state. This is not a private audit. This is the one that comes to us in many agencies, and it just makes it explicitly clear that they can redact for state security before they send it to us and to the public. And do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, further questions on 1202 or how we're going to proceed? Okay, I think that wraps up our business a little sooner than I thought. There are extra sandwiches. Please take an extra one with you if you want to, you have a half hour. We probably won't start right at 7. It's probably going to be at least 10 minutes afterwards, so you probably have about a half hour. So we're done our business. I want to stay ahead of the game. We're getting lots of calls and texts and emails from House members, you know, why aren't you doing this, doing that? So for tonight, I think we've covered what we wanted to cover. Get some food, get some rest, and we'll be back on the floor in about a half hour. Thank you. We're adjourned.